Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Ethex's Cuppa Club today. We are hosting a very large panel today of enthusiastic speakers. So we'll be getting going very shortly while we just wait for individuals to start logging on. So if you just bear with us, and then we will start to introduce the panelists shortly. Good, so welcome. My name is Lisa Ashford. I'm CEO of Ethex, and I'm joined by a very esteemed panel today, and we're going to be talking about Community Energy Together, which is a fantastic initiative that has been running since 2019 in its first, as a first idea, and then has taken some years to come to fruition. And if I could just introduce my fellow panelists, I have Sophie Fernley-Whittingstall. Welcome, Sophie. Sophie is representing Community Energy Together today. I have Tony Roper, who's one of the directors at Yelm Community Energy. Alberto Martellini, Director of Kent Community Energy. Welcome. Howard Betts, who is a founding member at Shropshire and Telford Community Energy. And lastly, but not least, Stephen Cockett, General Manager, White Community Energy. Did I get that right, Stephen? Great, perfect. So welcome. Today we are recording the session, so we will be able to send the recording around after the session. We'll be running for about 45 minutes to an hour today. That will give everyone a chance to speak and for us to have some questions. You may ask any questions in the chat function, and I will feed those into the conversation as we go, so feel free to ask some questions there. I'll direct them to the right people within the panel. And just a reminder that today is not a financial promotion in any way. And unfortunately, we can't provide any specific financial advice on your own personal circumstances. If you have any questions that we don't quite get to during the session, we can always try and follow up after the session, and we'll send around any links to any resources that get mentioned as we go along. So let's kick off. Firstly, we're going to talk and find out a little bit more about the top background to Community Energy Together. How did it come about? What is it trying to achieve? And then we will bring in the individual speakers to talk a little bit about their own individual projects. So Sophie, if I could turn to you first, can you tell me a bit more about Community Energy Together and the whole concept, and why it's so strategically important within the community energy sector in the UK?
Yeah, thank you very much, Lisa. Yes, Community Energy Together started from an idea which was kicked off in 2019 by the charity Power to Change. They wanted to set up something called the Next Generation Project, which was designed to promote collaboration and innovation in local energy. So that had three strands to it: peer mentoring, grants to allow new models for community energy, because the feed-in tariff subsidies had been removed, making it harder for community energy groups to get off the ground. And the third strand was to bring local energy generating assets into community ownership. There was a piece of research done some years ago that showed when energy projects are owned by the communities that host them, they generate about 12 to 14 more times of community benefit for local communities than if they are owned commercially. So that's where the idea began. Then COVID hit and things slowed down a little bit, but working through CORE, they bought 7 operational solar farms, and we've got representatives, as you know, from all those solar farms on the call today. They dispersed grants to the local communities living near those solar farms to give them the skills that they needed to run the community benefit societies and run the solar farms. Some of the communities already had very experienced community groups, as I'm sure they'll tell you when they speak to you directly. The net result of that is Community Energy Together, which is a portfolio of about 36 megawatts spread across 7 solar farms, as you know. That's enough energy to supply the equivalent of 12,750 homes. And once all these solar farms have been transferred into full community ownership, that will grow the amount of community-owned solar in England and Wales by 20%. So it's a very significant project for the community energy sector. Probably the most important thing, though, is that by coming together, these groups are sharing their experience, they're sharing their resources, and they're also helping to reduce the overall risk of the solar portfolio. It gives you an opportunity as an investor to support a local project, or if you're someone who just really cares about community energy nationally, to support a range of projects across the UK. The most important outcome, I think, is the community benefit funds that are generated as a result of the projects coming into community ownership. And we estimate those are going to total about £20 million across the lifetime of all these projects. So that's a really significant amount of money to be reinvested in local social and environmental initiatives, and especially in projects to tackle climate change. It's the first time, I think, that we've had 4 share offers launched simultaneously from different community energy groups, but all with the same goals. So and all under similar terms. So it really is a very innovative and exciting new development for the community energy sector.
Great, thank you, Sophie. And, you know, the first questions coming up are specifically around, well, if the assets are already running, you know, how does that increase environmental benefit? And I think what I'm hearing from you, if I can summarize, is this is, first of all, it's a first of a kind type of project. It's really trying to enable community groups to have a stake in their own energy future. It's acting as a real exemplar and demonstrator, really, to other organisations around the country, so that community energy can be multiplied to every community across the UK. And then that, as you said, if these assets were just in commercial ownership, obviously the profits would go to ultimately the shareholders. In this case, they go to the communities, and the communities themselves decide how to distribute those. And there's the organisations will tell you themselves, there's good governance structures around that, how that surplus is distributed. And ultimately, you know, this is creating not just social benefit, but we hope a multiplier effect in terms of the environmental benefit, because that funding can go on to support new projects, and also they can be, you know, proven more renewable energy projects, or potentially that's money that can be used for riskier example projects, pilot projects that are can be rolled out, you know, across the country. But, you know, I think would that be a fair summary of how to frame that?
I think that's exactly right, Lisa. So by giving the money back to these community energy groups, they can develop new renewable energy projects. They can invest the money in energy efficiency, for example, in some communities, which helps to reduce energy demand, or in other projects that contribute to a future net zero, whether it's tree planting or rewilding or sustainable agriculture. And you will hear from the different groups the ways in which they plan to use the money that they generate from the solar farms in other initiatives that will help to tackle climate change.
Exactly. And these groups, sorry, I'm speaking for you, and you obviously will have the opportunity to speak for yourselves in a minute. These organisations are set up as community benefit societies. So at their very core is the desire to bring that benefit to the community, and each of those groups has a very strong purpose within their equivalent of articles of association, which really holds them to providing that benefit, whether it's environmental or additionally social benefit as well. And just to clarify as well, the assets have already been purchased, and there are organisations in the social sector who basically are holding those assets for when the community benefit societies can complete this last step effectively, which is the share offer, which is one of the final components of that overall suite of finance for the projects. So why don't we talk straight to the communities involved here? Let's hear their perspective. We're going to fairly do this in alphabetical order. And I will hold you to your 5 minutes to give an overview of your organisation and how this came to be. So we're going to start with Kent Community Energy, if you'd like to go first and give us your perspective. Thanks very much, Alberto.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Can you hear me well? Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us in today's webinar and for your interest in our community energy offer. I am Alberto Marcellini. I live in Kent, and today I represent, as Lisa mentioned, Kent Community Energy. Even though my accent isn't quite local, I was born and grew up in Italy, and I spent a few years in Spain before moving to the UK almost 20 years ago, and which 12 years spent in London and 8 years in Kent. So during this time, I work in various industries, from consulting, technology, financial services, and actually my first work experience was in energy utility and sustainable energy production. Similarly to other 4 directors on Kent Community Energy's board, and I recommend you to check their profiles on www.kentcommunityenergy.org. I'll post the link on the chat shortly, so you can appreciate as well the technical business and financial expertise of my colleagues, which obviously ensure a solid governance of the assets and the community benefit funds we will generate. So personally, I decided to move from corporate to purpose-driven initiatives, and since then I got progressively more involved in community-led initiatives, focus on stuff like financial inclusion and obviously my current passions in renewable energy. So one of the things, and I think that was already mentioned by Sophie and Lisa, is one of the things that most excite me about this community energy proposition is because of the regenerative and distributive mechanism. So we take the nature's assets and redistribute these assets and the profit generated by these assets as a wealth creation cycle for everyone. So we need to raise £365,000 from like-minded investors to transfer the ownership of, as already mentioned, of already built and fully functional 5 megawatts solar assets, solar farm made of 20,000 solar panels based in North Kent in Sittingbourne, which is apparently the UK sunniest county, and is capable of producing enough carbon-free energy for 1,400 homes, and this was mentioned. It will contribute to the 20% increase in capacity of community-owned solar energy in England and Wales. So over the next 25 years lifetime of this farm, of this project, we expect to generate a quite significant fund, which will be redeployed, redistribute to projects specifically in Kent to support disadvantaged communities. And as you may know, in Kent, there are about 1.5 people living here, and there are also some of the most deprived areas in England. So just to give an example of our purpose, over the last 3 years, we have already distributed £36,000 in grants, funding a number of Kent-based charities to support investment to tackle food poverty, mental health, and income and financial inclusion. And we are very much focused on scaling these programs once we complete the fundraising through Ethex. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Alberto. And just in terms of a couple of the questions that are coming in, let's just look at those quickly. The whole process of transferring these assets to community ownership, obviously there's been an incredible amount of due diligence done in this process. And you know, the business model and financial process and assessment for making sure that this makes sense from a commercial perspective has been very strongly managed by some key advisors who've worked with the likes of Power to Change, Big Society Capital, and the community groups. There's been a very thorough and comprehensive process, which actually has been going for a number of years now. So this is the final part, if you like, where this project comes alive, where the communities actually now get a chance to take a stake in these projects themselves and become a member of the community benefit societies through potential investment in community shares. And obviously there are certain risks related to each of the projects. Obviously, we always recommend that people fully read the share offer documentation, which is on the Ethex website, and all of that detail regarding the risks and potential returns are included there. So let's move on to talk to the next community. So I would love to introduce now, let's have a go with Shropshire and Telford Community Energy. Welcome, Howard. If you'd like to give us a bit of background, that would be lovely.
Hello, my name's Howard Betts. I'm a director of Shropshire and Telford Community Energy. Our 10 megawatt solar farm was built in 2016. We as a group came into existence in 2020, which is right at the start of COVID, which made life interesting. There was no similar organisation in Shropshire at the time, and that's why we came into existence. We were registered as a community benefit society in March 2022. And we've all been on a long and steep learning curve relating to or taking advantage of the training that was offered by Power to Change and Next Generation that Sophie mentioned in the introduction. Community benefits from STCE. Shropshire is a very large county and area with few large populations and lots of small villages and towns. We split our community benefit into two streams. Half of it goes to community projects within 15 miles of the solar farm. That's managed by a separate charity on our behalf called Community Resource in Shrewsbury. Projects include the Whitchurch Blackberry Fair, which is a huge event every October, and their words are, it turns the whole town into a stage. We've given money to community allotments, beekeepers, litter picking equipment for another town or village called Great Mess and Little Mess, would you believe, wanted litter picking equipment. We've given money for a mower for the tennis club, and we've done a lot for village halls. The other half of our community benefit fund goes to the whole of Shropshire, and that's targeted on specifically energy related subjects. And that includes, we've done rainwater harvesting and LED lights for a community building in Telford. We've put solar panels, insulation, new windows onto village halls and community buildings and around Shropshire. And another thing we've done is training of, we've given money towards training of volunteer energy advisors, which was a project headed by a climate group in South Shropshire. We're quite a large area to cover. Biodiversity improvements is a big part of what we want to do. We've got a professional ecologist on our board to help us improve the biodiversity of our solar farm. We're engaging with the landowner who lives next door. We've been looking at the sheep grazing stocking rate, and we've been obviously talking about improving wildflowers, which is what everybody wants on solar farms. But one of the things that came up in our discussions with the landowner, he keeps horses, so he's quite happy for wildflowers to be improved as long as we don't introduce ragwort, which horses don't like. So that's the sort of thing that a community body like us will engage with the local people, we think, in a much better way than a commercial organisation running solar farms from a long way away. Our ecologist has spotted the potential for skylarks. We've got a butterfly reserve nearby. We've recently installed bat detectors on the site and identified 3 species of bats. And Mark, our ecologist, is in contact with the other groups in Community Energy Together, and we believe we want to share our expertise in the spirit of the Community Energy Together concept, which Sophie has mentioned. Another priority for us is new energy related projects, and we're pleased to be in partnership with Share Energy, who were instrumental in setting us up in the first place. They are working with our support on a heat network in Bishop's Castle, which is right out in the country. Very high carbon footprint, but a very eco-minded community, and the heat network will hopefully use a wind turbine, if it's approved, to convert a megawatt of electrical power generated from the wind into 3 megawatts of heat through a heat pump, and then distribute it through a heat network in the town. That's quite an innovative process, and we're fully supporting Share Energy with whatever we can help to push this along. We've contributed to the development of the Marches LEP strategy for 50% renewables in Shropshire to achieve the net zero targets. We're in discussion with the community, in fact 2 community-owned farms in Shropshire, about adding to their renewable energy. These may well involve wind, which is another contentious thing at the moment, but we're hoping for changes in government policies on that. A commercial company has approached us with help in reducing their energy consumption, and so there could be more opportunities to work with them. There's a group we're working with called Big Solar, which is aiming to put rooftop PV on businesses. That's another cooperative, and we're in partnership with them. We will be representing STCE at the Telford and Wrekin Climate Action Borough Partnership Conference in a few weeks' time. So I shall be there personally with the banner and displays of what we've been doing for the community. On the business side, we're conscious now, as our share membership builds up, that the investors are entrusting their money to us. We'll be trying to operate in a prudent, business-like way. We get figures every month for the power we generate, and we will in due course get information rather from concerning how much power we're generating and how much money we're getting from selling the electricity. We will monitor this monthly and regularly, and to compare our ongoing costs with budget and the revenue with budget. We've got business people on our board of directors. My background is from the business side, and our watchword will be, how are we doing in reality compared to our budgets? And we've got a very complex financial model and business plan going forward many years, and we want to be able to assure our investors that we're looking after their money to the best benefit, in the best way we can, for the benefit of the investors and the benefits of the communities. And we're going to do this in the following the concept of sharing this information as appropriate with the other community bodies, and community energy together is the way forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Howard. That's a really comprehensive overview of your strategy in terms of the community benefit you're bringing very locally, hyper local, and further afield, which is amazing. And you know, all of those projects, you know, many of them just wouldn't happen without community energy together. And so creating that, you know, really experienced base of people who spend an incredible amount of time researching and looking into these different initiatives to bring them to fruition, you know, is obviously extremely positive. So yeah, well done on your initiatives. And yes, if I'd like to bring Stephen in now from White Community Energy. Stephen, White is got a bit more experience with the solar to date, haven't they? You could just give us an overview of how that all comes together in your strategy for White Community Energy.
Sure. Okay. Well, thanks very much. So as you've mentioned, we do have a little bit more experience. White Community Energy had the first share raise back in, it was formed in 2015 to take advantage of the government policy of moving solar farms into community ownership. So White Community Energy had their first share raise back in 2016. So we're a little bit old hands at this, you could say. But I have to say that joining community energy together is really like a step change in activity. Now, I've very much enjoyed listening to the speakers already, and already I can see how much we're going to be able to benefit each other from sharing our experiences. So I'm really looking forward to that. And thanks ever so much for letting me have the opportunity to speak here. I mean, thus far, I've really enjoyed speaking to people about this project and about going forward here. It's been very, very easy for me to sell this as a project to people. There's so many wins involved with this, and talking to people about how we're going to be constitutionally obliged to spend, you know, a great deal of money in the community is really very enjoyable for me, and I receives a great deal of positive feedback. So the Isle of Wight, as you can guess, is very geographically unique, and we have a good feeling of community. People like the idea of self-sufficiency. People have also have the sense we're a little bit detached from the grid, and I think that has very much helped our share raise so far. We've done very well so far. We're at 42% of our targets. We have a great many more events which are still coming up. We're going to be having visits to the site. We have more Zoom calls with in our locale. We have more features going to local papers. We have audiences with the local Chamber of Commerce and some other bodies, all of which I'm very much looking forward to taking care of. I'll be doing some of those presentations with the other directors of White Community Energy. There's an enormous amount of experience on that board, and as per the other speakers, I recommend you go and have a look at the White Community website. Very easy to find by Googling White Community Energy. And you'll see the directors there. Between them, they have many, many decades of experience in finance, in fundraising, in solar, and in renewables in the wider sense. So White Community Energy, in recent years, our public presence has grown a great deal. We've had a number of public-facing events. The most notable of those has been the Going Electric Show, which is the Isle of Wight's only electric transport and green technology show. This year and last year, we had almost 1,000 people attend the event, listening to see over 40 exhibitors and a whole day of talks. This year we had horizontal rain, and we still reached 1,000 people. So we're fulfilling a very, very great need for that kind of event on the island. And I'm 100% sure that that'll go on into the future here. We've also paid for, funded, and contributed to a number of very important research events, research projects on the island, often to do with upgrading the local grid. Which is very important. It's quite sort of nerdy, and it all goes on in the background, but it's very, very important stuff. The directors of White Community Energy have quite a significant amount of sway with the distributed network operator. They're very, very well respected people. And the other big project that we have that we have funded is to start an electric cargo bike operation on the island. So in 3 towns now, you can see on a daily basis electric cargo bikes going around, and that's part of a community interest organisation. So they're very, very good. Going forward, one of the really strong emphasis that one of the big projects that we want to move forward with is improving people's homes. For those of you that are familiar with SAP scores and EPCs, the national average is around 66 points. Our EPC is around about 60 points on the island. So we have quite poor housing here. We have a lot of elderly people with all sorts of barriers that are preventing them from making upgrades to their homes. And as is very clear to everyone on this call, I'm sure, you know, the best thing you can do with energy is not use it in the first place. There's a number of organisations that are working in that field, but all of them are quite cash strapped. You know, with the extra funding that comes in from this project, it will really be able to have a transformative effect on those. Then, of course, our core competence, the core competence of White Community Energy is solar power, and we're contacted on a regular basis with people wanting to help put solar panels on the Scout Hut, on the RSPCA kennels and schools, community areas, and we're really championing at the bit to get moving with those. We do have some network connection problems with the smaller scale installations at the moment, but the word coming down the grapevine is that those network restrictions are going to be eased very soon. And then White Community Energy, we already have a long list of potential projects, and we'll be jumping into those with both feet, really. So we have a very broad range of competencies. We have a fantastic set of directors. Like I say, take a look at the website, you can see for yourselves. And we have a great deal of local need. So with this money that will be coming out of this project, and I'll say it again, being constitutionally obliged to spend that money into the community is really an exciting project. We have lots of great partners, lots of other organisations to work with, and we're looking forward to accelerating the entire transition to a low carbon future.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Stephen. As a regular visitor of Isle of Wight, I'm thrilled to hear all of that. And particularly the electric vehicle stuff as well. I think this really demonstrates just how vibrant and active all of these communities are in their own areas. So many projects which are being kicked off, and so much intellectual capital which is held within these organizations. It really is an incredible resource. And so being able to scale up these communities through this entire project just helps to enable more and more projects which have this, you know, amazing ripple effect throughout the communities and beyond. And someone has asked a question, you know, do people have a preference for local investors or members versus national? And I think if I could sort of answer at a top level, Community Energy Together was conceived, and maybe Sophie, you can add on to this as well, was conceived such that it would have local interest and local members, but understanding that, you know, bigger together concept, you know, all of these organizations together can actually attract even a national attention and people who really care about community energy. You don't have to live in Kent or Isle of Wight to get involved. You know, that's the whole concept. And Ethex itself, you know, has this vibrant base of ethically minded investors that just love investing in renewable energy and anything that helps to do with progressing UK position on climate change and reducing poverty and building more resilient communities. Sophie, I don't know whether you want to add any more there.
No, that's right, Lisa. And everybody who invests in any of these projects becomes a member of the Community Benefit Society, so that they can have a say and vote in meetings and so on. But you certainly don't have to be local to invest. And if you don't live near any of these projects, but you want to support, help grow the community energy sector, which is, you know, quite important. Quite a lot of people want to have a stake in the transition to net zero, and this is a great way of doing it.
Exactly. And, you know, I think that community energy organisations will always have a core base of local members who are really active and engaged. But actually, you'll find, you know, people who were born on the Isle of Wight but then moved away may still wish to invest in that particular project, or, you know, they have an affinity with that particular area, or actually they just really care about that sector as a whole. They want to get involved, and that's why people you know, choose to invest in these types of projects. There is yes, thank you for clarifying. There is a target rate of 6% return to investors, and it's the same across all of the organisations that we're talking to today. But obviously, each has their specifics, and you should really read the share offer documents in detail to get more information. Now, coming last but not least to Tony from Yelm. Tony, please tell us how you are going at Yelm and what your plans are.
Thank you, Lisa. Good afternoon, everybody. For those of you that don't know well Yelm is, we're in South Devon, below Dartmoor, South Hams, just east of Plymouth. There is the River Yelm with the estuary. And we're broadly 5 parishes that circle the Yelm there. YCE, Yelm Community Energy, was formed back in 2015, partly because a local farmer was getting planning permission in Newton Downs to build a solar farm. And one of the conditions of that planning was that it should be owned by the local community. It's taken us a while to get to this stage. Since that date, COVID played a large part. But the YC has been around for about 7 years. It has 5 directors and a part-time operations manager. I joined about 3 years ago. One of the reasons for doing that was that I've got a background as an accountant, engineer. In fact, for the last 20 years, I've been making infrastructure investments, particularly also in renewables. We currently have about 150 members that we've, you know, because of our plans to get to this stage with the opportunity to buy the assets, over 150 members that we've engaged with regularly. Turning to the assets we hope to acquire as part of the share raise, we're seeking to raise 860,000 as our target, and that is for 3 solar farms. We have one here in Newton Downs, there's another one locally at Creekham, and a third at Marland. Collectively, they're about 12.3 megawatts, and that's equivalent to their generation to about 4,450 homes. They've been operational. Newton Downs became operational in 2018, the other 2 in 2020, and at YCE we've been involved with these assets since they became operational to understand how their performance has been going. And basically, our projections are that from these 3 solar farms, we can obviously pay back members' interest in principal, and we'll end up with approximately 8 million of surplus after that over the life of the 3 farms, which we will be using in the local community. And turning to that and what we do with that surplus, to date, we have made about £100,000 in grants locally to support a wide range of initiatives focused on low carbon education and ecological projects. This grant money to date has come mainly from Power to Change, and we've run it through an annual grant programme where local interested parties can apply for these grants. Some of the projects we've been involved in, which are worth probably bringing out, are energy saving advice, obviously giving advice to households to save energy, energy saving. The colleagues have talked about solar panels on schools and community halls. One of the most probably interesting project, electric ferry. This was a project conceived probably 2 years ago, because on the River Yelm, if you want to be on the river, assuming you're not a paddle boarder or rowing or sailing, the chances are you're going to be using a petrol or diesel motor. And one of the issues about the Yelm is it's actually a site of scientific interest at SSSI, partly for the seagrass. And this project was conceived to bring effectively electric transport to the river. And we at YCE gave it some initial funding. It has since spun out as a separate community project in its own right. And they've gone on to buy the boat with the battery-powered electric outboard, and together with all the other infrastructure they need. So that is an example of a project we have seeded. Our hope is to do more of the same vein. Another example is we've done a lot of tree planting. We've got another project, Yelm Estuary to Moor. This is about the corridor about the River Yelm. It actually starts up in Dartmoor before it comes down to the estuary and flows out into the sea, and that's about the wildlife corridor it creates. So we have got a good track record in the type of projects we want to support in the communities. Everything we do complies with our rules. In our rules, we have a set of objectives called objects, and this is what guides us in our grant giving program. And, we probably have the largest fundraiser of the four, partly because we've got 3 solar farms, not 1. And we really, are pleased and excited to be working with our colleagues in CET to make this possible. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Tony. Really appreciate that. And thanks to everyone who's posting questions. We're getting busy in the chat. So let's just see if we can, I think we've answered some of those as we've gone along, but let's just see if there are any more that we can cover off. So there's a question about, big question here. Does the vision for the future of community energy together include an aggregated fund to support emerging community ideas with catalytic finance at scale? Well, that is an awfully big question. I mean, I think that, Sophie, I think I'm going to come to you in a minute. I think the whole concept of CORE, which is, the start of community energy together, was to really create something at scale, which involves different communities in different areas, but with one concept. The catalytic finance has come through from Big Society Capital and Power to Change to enable this project to happen in the first place, because they were instrumental in the initial stages. And then the communities obviously ramping up their own activities. And those benefits, I think, that we're seeing are coming through in each of the local communities. The point being that they get to decide what those important projects are and where the benefits really should lie. Sophie, what else can we say about that?
Well, I think that's right. I think it's important that with these share offers that people understand that the community benefit funds will be going to those local communities. But this is an innovative and exciting project, and if it's successful, then I'm sure that CORE and Power to Change and Big Society Capital will develop an alternative or future stream for other projects like this. But I'm not going to speak for them.
Yes, it has been a very lengthy project, and it's involved, it's multi-stakeholder. So it has been, extremely involved. And, what we're seeing now is the real benefits to be created by the communities, and them each taking action in their own specific areas. There are some specific questions with regards to, yes, I mean, I guess there is it comes back to a question that we did answer earlier, but I think maybe for clarity, and Tony, I'm going to come to you. there's a question about, well, shouldn't they have just spent the money on developing new assets rather than buying existing assets?
Well, the answer is they partly did, because in fact Creecum was developed through the core program. So it was partly done that way. The other thing is these were often small developers that core had relationships with. So there is history here. And I think the important thing about the core program is that they are, they've been a warehouse of these assets. I've seen questions about financial gain. That was not core's purpose. They are charities behind it. Their aim was to warehouse these to give us the opportunity to buy them back into community ownership. And, we've been working with them for a number of years to achieve this.
Right. And obviously, as we've discussed, some of the communities are already active in their own right, having developed their own community energy projects. And indeed, through this project, it's possible that they will have skilled up sufficiently enough that they can then go on to develop their own projects, further projects in due course. So, I think this has been a hotbed basically for innovation, for creating new ideas, new projects. And, this is a really exciting new structure, and one which we hope, is really going to create this long-term benefit for these communities across the UK in over the very long term. So, Tony, yes.
So I just thought I'd add, Lisa, that as the listeners probably realise, to get 4 share offers to launch on the same day was quite an achievement. And I think all of us on talking to you today, and also all colleagues that aren't present, have been focused on getting to the launch and getting the share issue away. But we're really at the foothills of some exciting collaboration that we're going to take forward together. Different speakers referred to it. And, we do have some ideas for CET as well, and ways it might be more efficient in the future. But the focus really was to get to this sort of launch pad and get ourselves away. In the case of some of us, it's been a long time waiting. So the focus has been on that. But I think the journey now is quite exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really great place to finish, actually. So I think we managed to answer a number of your questions. Perhaps we didn't answer everyone, so apologies for that. For anyone who has generic community energy questions, the Community Energy England website is very useful. And if you have any specific questions on any of the offers, all of the documents and outlines of the offers are on the Ethex website, so you can look at them individually and you can look at them as a group as well. So thank you very much, all of you on the panel today, for joining. Really appreciate the conversation, and thanks to everyone for listening and finding out some more about this transformative project. Look forward to the follow-up when we can talk more about what's happened in another few years. Thanks all.
Thank you now.
Thanks. Bye-bye.